Good morning and welcome to yet another episode of Wise Wednesday. To be precise, it's our second episode, and I have the author Chandrika, writer of many books inspired by Indian mythology and folk stories around some of the themes surrounding spirituality and her own journey as a bhakta. And that's what she's going to talk to us about. Welcome, Chandrika, and thank you so much for coming on our Lumiere Wise Wednesday today.
Good morning, and thank you so much for inviting me. I'm so glad to be here to talk to you today. Actually,
Chandrika,
today, tell me.
go on.
No, today is Mauni Amavasya, which means we are supposed to be centered in stillness.
Really?
Yes.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Chandrika, you have been writing books for the past 15 years, and these books have been published by Vakil's beautiful productions. I have all of these, and this is the first book I read, Hanuman Chalisa. And that time I had not met Chandrika or even spoken with her. I just knew her as Chandrika. And in the last one intense wish after reading that first chapter was I get to talk to this author. So Chandrika, this is like wish come true.
Thank you so much for saying that. It's so reassuring because I also, when I read, I'd like to meet the writers, but I have my conversations with them in my head through imagination. So it's wonderful to meet you, talk to you, and to discuss my most favorite subject, spirituality.
So Chandrika, after the Hanuman Chalisa, which is something that I only knew as a prayer, to get into the facets and to understand the stories, because you are a storyteller. I just think you captivate us through your writing and your stories and your narrative and your ability to bring in a deeply researched book put together with a lot of love. How did this journey start for you?
It actually started, I think writing was always there in me. Even as a child, I would rather write than do anything else. And the only teacher who never had a complaint about me was my English teacher, because I studied nothing else except English, read books constantly, wrote all the time, and enjoyed the process. And much later, when I grew up, I would submit articles to magazines and I would submit articles to newspapers. So I was a freelancer for a very long time. But then my subjects varied. Sometimes it was childcare, sometimes it was parenting. I remember on one occasion writing about the Gita Govindam, but that was a rare occasion. But generally, spirituality was not my area of interest. As I would always say, I started off life as an atheist and as a non-believer in a very spiritually intense family where religious rituals were also considered as a way of life. And I deliberately, because I was a child growing up in the 60s and 70s where the Beatles were in vogue and where rebellion was the theme of our life. So I had to rebel, and so I would not do anything I was asked to do. So that was how I started off. But I believe I did not choose this path. It was chosen. And once he casts a glance on you, you can't escape. It's like what St. Francis once said. St. Francis was asked, how did you become a saint? And Francis said,
there is a audio disturbance. Just check the wire, Chandrika. Little.
It seems fine from this
now
end.
it's better. Now it's fine. Yeah.
Okay.
I think when you went back, it kind of just, yeah.
Okay. So St. Francis said, I was chosen, and the person who was asking him said, what arrogance, how can you say you were chosen? And were you so special that you had to be chosen by God? And Francis said, probably I was the greatest rascal God ever knew. That is why he chose me. And I think this idea of being someone who is so fallen that God looks on you and says, okay, inko uthana hai. and he lifts us up. That probably is the only reason why he picked on me. I compare myself to Ajamila, the Brahmin who went down the slippery slope of sin to such an extent that every depravity known to man was something he had committed. Until finally, on his deathbed, he realized that he wanted to meet his son for the last time and called out his son's name. And see the coincidence of it. His son was called Narayana. And he said, Narayana. And when the Yamadutas came to take his soul to hell, Krishna came. And he said, this man has called me. I am taking his soul with me. So probably that is exactly what I feel about myself. God said, he can't fall any further, too arrogant, too conceited, so lift her. So he pushed me into this path. And when I went to Vakils with a whole lot of stories, surprisingly, a whole lot of stories on Krishna. No, I want you to do this on Atma Siddhi because Srimad Rajchandra Ji was Mahatma Gandhi's guru and he wanted me to write a translation of Atma Siddhi. That is where the journey started. And from there was no looking back.
I would have loved to be in your English class, and you taught at so many colleges, including mine at some time. But of course, I would have been passed. I passed out at that time, and you have done English, you did psychology, and then this whole field where you were engulfed, and you almost make it seem like you didn't really have a say, and you genuinely sort of come from that place of emptiness and something flowing through you because you do write about it. Your stories, your inspiration. Let's talk about the Krishna book, because this is the Krishna book that I read second, and or rather I'm reading it now, that's third, and the Rama book, which is what I read second, and now I'm kind of so have a different perspective completely on Ram. So doing this whole research, choosing your subject, the process of writing, maybe you want to just tell us, how does a book come to Chandrika?
A book comes to me in a variety of ways. Sometimes it comes to me through songs, through the bhajans that people sing. Sometimes to me through prayers. Sometimes it comes to me through the most beautiful mechanism stories. So each one of these are like little messages sent to me. So when I listen to a bhajan, for instance, I note the words, I put it down somewhere, and whenever I get a moment, I start translating that. And then it gives me a connect. It gives me a connect to the God I want to speak of. Krishna was someone who was so much a part of me through my atheistic journey. If there was anyone at any point of time I had even the slightest reverence for, it was Krishna, because Krishna suited my rebellious tendencies. He listened to no law. He made the law. He became the law. And even during the Mahabharata, he did what he thought was right at every eventuality. He did not look at anyone to show him the way. He was the way. And I always felt that if at any point of time I wanted to turn to God, it would be Krishna. So Krishna has been part of my very existence for the longest period of time in my life. But Krishna to me is not merely God. He is, I express every bhava. I have Vatsalya bhava to him. I have Kanta bhava. I express everything. He is my friend. He is my guide. He is my everything. And once I connect to him, I empty myself out like the master who tells the pupil, if you come with your cup full of tea, how can I give you anything? Just pour it out, empty yourself and begin this journey. So I started my Krishna journey by emptying myself out, and Krishna started filling it up one story at a time. I did not merely go to the Harivamsha or to the Bhagavatam to find out about Krishna. I went to folk stories, as I said, and each area has its own story about Krishna. The law I have to tell, because apart from any other religion, if you look at Christianity or if you look at Buddhism or if you look at any other religion, Jainism, they have a set narrative, which is the only narrative they have. With us, our gods live with us, they grow with us, they become a part of us, and we can introduce our own stories about them, which is what is so fascinating. For instance, when I was doing the Rama book, I came upon this book which spoke about folk stories, and there was this entire conversation between the mother-in-law and the daughter-in-law talking about Kaushalya talking to Sita. What did Kaushalya tell Sita when she first got married? How was she to adjust to a new house? What food was she to cook? What duties was she to perform? And in each one of these, the mother-in-law of current times found a connect with her daughter-in-law. And these are folk songs which are sung during marriages. Imagine that. So it is not that the Ramayana is a book written by Valmiki or is a book written by Kambar or is a book written by Tulsidas. It's a book we are writing today. Krishna is a story we are telling today. And when I tell my grandson the stories of Krishna and he tells me, Mama, I am Krishna, I say, of course, every child is a Bal Gopal. That is how we see them. And that is how we connect with them. And every time he says something which is an imaginative story, he said, but Krishna also did this, now, so I can do it. So see, Krishna becomes yours. You possess Krishna. So it is not that he is a god up there. He is a child in your lap. So in this way, I started connecting with Krishna and making him my own. And I began to realize this is what I wanted to do for my reader. I wanted Krishna to be approachable, Krishna to be played with, Krishna to tease you into love for him, Krishna to captivate your imagination. And you, as the Alvars of South India realize, you become his beloved. You become Radha. And as Krishna told Radha, when Radha told him, Krishna, you keep the flute at your lips, but you don't hold me to you. He said, because look at the bamboo. It is hollow. It is empty. I can play music. Radha is full of herself. Where is the place for Krishna? And so it said that instead of becoming Dhara, which flows outward to the world, she turned inwards and became Radha, and she submitted herself to Krishna to such an extent, it is said, that at the end, even before leaving his avatara as Krishna, he remembered Radha because Radha had become Krishna. So for me, this is the journey. The journey is not to find Krishna stories out there. The journey is to find Krishna within and to surrender in complete emptiness so that he can fill me with his music and he can play through me. And if I can connect with any reader and the reader can feel that love for Krishna, I've done my job. Mm. 100%. Every single bit of it, except for the layout, where the artist placed the pictures in the book, where it had to be placed, that also was something I told the artist. As we were going through the book, once the manuscript was ready, as we were going through it, I would say, tell me how much text fits on this page. We need a painting to go with it, and this should be the theme of the painting. So the painting would then, we had, Vakils had entire archival material of paintings. I also accessed paintings from museums. I did a lot of my own research. Websites had a lot which we could take, because none of these is copyright bound, because these are ancient paintings. After we access the painting, the artist at Vakils would sit down and recolor many of these paintings. The visual feast you talk about, many of these were very faded paintings, not properly preserved. The colors had to be filled in again. She took months to do that. Aisha, she is Annaga in Vakils, Annaga Survey. She spent a whole lot of time working on the paintings. And each day she would tell me, I want to make it a little better. I want to make it brighter. I want it to come alive, because it should be as good as the text. The sad part of it is, it became so good that people don't look at the text, they look at the pictures only now. And they say, what beautiful paintings. You know, my grandson, he looks at it and says, wow. And then I'm thrilled. You know, so the paintings are conveying a message. They take that story forward. More importantly, I wanted to show people how dedicated artists have been for centuries. If I say I love this God, I am not alone. There have been people who have loved him for centuries, dedicated their entire lives. Most of these artists are anonymous, unknown people. They surrendered to him and he came alive through their paintbrushes. As for the poems I have on the side, they are from as many languages as I could source. And I'm telling you the miracles that Krishna would work. I would say this is the theme. I want a bhajan or a poem relevant to this theme. And I would just go on to the internet and it would come up. It would just come up a poem and I would say, wow. And what I would do is, with these poems, the translations were generally of very poor quality. I don't like making judgmental that, but the quality was not heartfelt. It was word to word translation or just a translation, but that was enough for me. I would find out the meaning, like Surdas, Tukaram. These were easy because Marathi and Hindi, Braj Bhasha, I sort of know. But Oriya, Bengali, it would be a lot more difficult. So I pick up each word, find out the meaning. Then once I got the meaning of the words, I would then understand what the poet was trying to say through these words and then do my own translation. Everything has been except given the name of the translator. If the name has not been given, I've translated it myself. Yeah. Especially, yeah, almost 5 years, more in fact, because I had to work till the very last page with each painting, with each verse that I wanted to put. I put everything into it. All my love, affection, bhakti, dedication, devotion, everything has gone into it. You know. And yes, yes, yes. In fact, my whole waking time was either dedicated to writing or to putting down things I wanted to refer to. While I was cooking, I put down something. While I was going to sleep, just before I went to sleep, if an idea came, I'd put it down. It was a process that was at one level constantly at work. My mind was obsessed. It was not that I wrote a book. I was being, squeezed dry by the process. And nothing in my life has been fulfilling as this. Nothing, nothing. You have God speak to you like that all the time through the voices of the saints, singers, poets, writers through centuries. what better punya could you do? There is a poem there. What did you do, Yashoda, to get Krishna as your son? What punya did you do? And what tapas did you do? And sometimes I feel, what did I do to deserve this? He came. What grace! And grace comes like that. It comes without asking any questions, without expecting anything. It just falls. And to be enveloped like that was, I think, the greatest fortune that I could have had. It happened. It happened twice. It happened twice. Time it happened when my father passed away, and my it was so coincidental. My father was in our family, extended family, always called the Bhishma Pitamaha, because he was that wise man who would be referred to for advice, for understanding, and things like that. And when I started writing about the death of Bhishma Pitamaha, my father expired. I remember I remember calling my publisher and saying, I can't finish the Krishna book. The person whom I looked up to as the pillar in my life, he was someone who could not die. In my mind, it was like that. He was the stira, the one who would remain forever. That was my conception of a father. A father didn't die. And when he died, and here Bhishma Pitamaha was on that bed of arrows, I just completely collapsed. I said, this is the end of my journey, and I don't want to write, I don't want to read, I don't want to do anything. I just want to sit down and cry, which I did. And by the way, I'm a great crier. When I cry and cry and cry. So I did that for a long while. I think the others, my siblings, revived faster. It took me a very long time. And it was a lot of soul searching. And actually, the whole process of death became more accessible to me through this. When I emerged, I was able to write about the death of Bhishma Pitamaha much better than had my father not died. I feel that these experiences come to us with a message. And we have to understand the message that this death we speak about is not what we consider as the end. It is just a door through which we go, and then there is something else, and then there is something else. We connect to break away to connect again. It's a rhythm, it's a dance. It's like his Rag, something which goes on endlessly. So that was one moment. The second time was when my mother expired. And my mother expired before my Rama book was out. And even there, at that point, I was so distraught, so distraught. I was emptied of all emotions at that point. And I would sit and read poetry and break down again and again. And then I began to realize again that death cannot make you stop. These people have come in our lives with a message. When that message has been delivered and they depart, we have to interest them. Today, I feel my father and mother, they live within me. They talk to me. They have never gone very far. When I need advice, that inner voice is there telling me what to do. And these people have become my source of inspiration. And they live. No one dies, they live. The Bhagavad Gita, uh, No. Actually, I started Krishna with the chapter on the Bhagavad Gita. I started the book with that chapter because Arun Mehta of Vakils, he told me, I want to know how you're going to. He says that many people have said we can do the story of Krishna. That is easy because his Bal Leelas are most enchanting. So anyone can write his Bal Leelas. I think that's not true. Even his Bal Leelas have to be written in a particular way because this Natkat Natwarlal, he knew he was pulling a fast one. And every time he did a trick, or he played the fool even with Yashoda would almost faint because when she saw his mouth open and she saw the world, she went into a faint. And then he pulls forgetfulness down so that she becomes just Yashoda again. So these things are very important. So he said that you can't do the Bhagavad Gita in that same manner. Do this. And I said, I can and I will. After I read, I don't know how much I read on the Gita, I started off trying to get just the main points, put it down again, whatever translation has been done by me. And what I thought was the essence of it, I put it in as few pages as possible because this was not an exposition on the Gita. When I finished doing that bit of it, Arun Mehta told me, I feel now that you can start writing Krishna. And I remembered tackling the Krishna and Subhadra episode also somewhere not in a linear fashion because I loved his relationship with Subhadra and that love story. So I brought that in also at some other point. There are things I do like this. Stories I write. The Gandhari story was another story I wrote, not quite in the same order. Because the Gandhari story was again a very interesting one. So sometimes I write this whole story, keep it away, and then when the time comes, I try and fit it in. And then when I fit it in, I make changes. Now that is another thing that I do. I chisel a lot when I write. First I write whatever comes, and then I realize that lines may not be in my head musical. For me, everything has to have a rhythm. Lines have to flow in a particular order. There are two words which are synonyms. But if one word falls in a particular rhythm and the other is not part of the rhythm of the sentence, I will not use the other one. I will use what fits into the rhythm. When you read it aloud, it should sound good, you know. So that is important. Go ahead. Yeah, 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 yeah. And yeah. Okay. Shri Mukundamala is the last book. Okay. I wrote Bhaja Govindam as one of my first books. After, yes. Which is the 81 paths to bhakti. Yeah. And it's a translation this time. And I wanted to specify this. I do a lot of these translations from various languages, not big. And this I want to stress again and again. I tell people it is not that I am an academician or a scholar or a philosopher. I am none of these. If there is any term I use for myself, I am a bhakta. I am empty. And if the saints and the sages fill me, I transmit that to others. But how I am able to do all these translations is because I go to the text, find out the meanings, try to connect with the philosophy. And the reason I'm doing it is, and Arun Mehta of Vakils and I share the same vision. We want the younger generation to realize the tradition and the heritage we come from. We come from a heritage seekers of spiritual wisdom, people who knew so much, who understood so much, who've been so wise. And this wisdom should not be lost. This wisdom has to be transmitted and has to be perpetuated. You know, the world should not only know about the greatness and the glory of Sanatana Dharma, our succeeding generations should know, especially since our succeeding generations are so English driven. We give them enough English translations accessible, which are not too pontificating and ponderous, which are easy on the tongue and the mind, so that they know how genuinely beautiful these texts were. Shri Mukundamala is a collection of 40 verses, which was composed by Kulashekara Alvar, who was a king who became a saint, and his Ishta Devata was Rama. He loved Rama to distraction, it is said. And in fact, on 2 occasions, he wanted to send armies when the Ramayana was told to help Rama in his battles. He said, what is the use of my army if I cannot help Rama in his battle? So he told his soldiers to be in readiness to fight Rama's battle, until the Ramayani who told him the Ramayana, the storyteller told him this has already been done. It said only when he finally had a vision of Rama and Sita sitting together, he stopped playing with the idea of sending his troops to fight Rama's battle. And yet, it is said that he had a vision of Krishna in a dream. And Krishna said, when will you write about me? And then it is that he started writing the Mukundamala, which is 40 verses dedicated to Krishna. And in each one of these, he speaks about the Bhakti Marga, how Krishna is so all encompassingly beautiful, so sensuous, so enthralling that you have to be captivated by him. So he teaches you. I don't. Yeah. The cosmic energy. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's been for me the most gratifying journey. And I pray every day that my connection with Krishna remains forever, life after life. Thank you so much. It's been wonderful speaking to you. Thank you.